Need to have a speaker view. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, I do need to keep an eye on people that want to come in, but that should not be a problem. Okay, good evening. Welcome, everybody, and a very special welcome to Miriam Moskovitz. Very happy that you're here and very eager to hear what you have to tell us. Now, for those who participate regularly, we have traveled a lot in the Netherlands itself and some in Israel and a bit in England. We were in Fargo, USA also, but today we're traveling from Charkov first to Australia and then back to Charkov. So thank you, Miriam, for being here. And as you said, you grew up in Australia. Australia is a country very far from all of us. And we know there is a very big Jewish community, but we would love to hear from you how it was growing up in Australia. How is Jewish life over there? How is it different or not? Please.
Thank you. Okay, very big honor to be with you all this evening. Please feel free if anybody wants to ask something directly straight, I'd be more than happy to answer you directly. So let me just tell you a little bit about my background. I'm from Sydney. I was born to a religious family. My parents were not Chabad. My father actually was born in Egypt. My mother was born in Czechoslovakia. My father in 1956 left Egypt when it decided to become dangerous for the Jewish community to be there, and he left to Australia. He was already like 16, 17 years old at the time. My mother left, was born in 1946, just after the war. Her parents survived, were the only survivors in their family. They were actually in Czechoslovakia during the war times. They happened to be hiding, they were hidden in a home of a non-Jewish person in the country who let them hide for over a year and a half in the roof of their house. So that's how my grandparents survived. And they came to Australia. My parents met each other, got married, and I'm one of four. In the end, all the rest of my brothers and sisters, we all became close to Chabad. What was actually interested me in Chabad was when I was a teenager, around 12. I started learning with a lady with a Chabad background, and what I liked about the Chabad Lubavitch way was this idea of shlichut, which is actually going out to help others, going out to like change the world. I was like a very ambitious teenager with lots of plans in life, and the idea of being able to go out somewhere exotic and change the world really excited me. I don't know if I thought it would be as exotic as Charkov, Ukraine, but that was what really excited me. My husband was born in Caracas in Venezuela, also from a religious, not Chabad home. He actually came to Chabad a bit later when he was like 16, 17. They had boys studying there in Caracas, and he also was encouraged by the Chabad way of thinking. So as an Australian, we are very, very far from the rest of the world. Now Australia became even further. My family is still there. The rest of my family is still there, but they're all like, Australia is very Corona conscious. So anyone who wants to go anywhere near there has to be 2 weeks in quarantine and only be an Australian. So it became even further. Jewish community, in my days, we had a Jewish day school. Now there's a lot more options available, kosher food. But there isn't as much as there is the being far away from the rest of the world. There is a very strong Jewish pride, very pro-Israel, very identifying with Jewish values, despite the distance. When I was 18, I went to New York to study by Lubavitcher Rebbe. I was 2 years in seminary. And if it's okay with you, I'll just share you a story that happened to me when I was there. It was actually the 1990, when I got there, it was 1990, 1987, 1988. That was my first year in seminary. In the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wife passed away, Rebbetsin Sara Katzman. And so the Rebbe had started a year of mourning. So the Rebbe had moved to his house. But there was and I, as one of the seminary girls, was chosen to be in charge of making for Lag BaOmer, they very often have a parade. And in America, what they do is, and in a lot of places when they do these parades, they get very big trucks, and they put on the trucks, they put some kind of Jewish themes to spread to children the message of, Jewish pride. And I was a representative of the girls' school, Beis Rivka, where I was studying. And together with a group of girls, we were working for like over a month and a half. We were working on this big presentation. We actually had made it in honor of the Rebbetsin Sara Katzman, the Rebbe's wife, and the Rebbe had spoken to a lot of people about the concept of, in her memory, to do something for the importance of a Jewish birthday. So we decided to take this Jewish birthday theme, and I'll just show you what we actually did over there. So basically, we made a very big, as you can see here, it looks like a castle. And then there's like a doll over here. And then there was 4 like gigantic presents. This was like, there was like four main things to do on your birthday: is to give charity, tzedakah is written over here, Torah, to learn some more Torah, to have a party, to have some kind of a party with your friends, and also to take a good resolution. So as you know, I'll be honest, of course, the idea was to make this big thing to make the kids have Jewish pride, but I obviously didn't want only that. I was also looking very much forward to having the extreme honor that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he would be standing at the parade and would see our work go by, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe would see it and be very proud of what we had done. So that was my dream. Every night as we worked till 4 or 5 in the morning working on this, this was a really an incredibly long and big job. So what happened was, when finally we came to the morning of Lag BaOmer, I was very excited at the extreme zchut. I don't know how to say this zchut, is extreme like honor, privilege, the extreme privilege of being able to have done this, and the Rebbe was going to be able to see it. And on the morning of that day, they said, because the Rebbe is in a year of mourning, the Rebbe has just decided that he is not going to be coming out to the parade. And I think I was 18 at the time, and I remember that I was so distraught. I burst out crying, no matter my age. And not only that the Rebbe didn't come out, it actually started pouring rain. So maybe that was good, that way no one could see that this 18-year-old girl was crying. But I was actually really mortified, very upset that it didn't work out, that the Rebbe didn't come out. Of course, the children were all there. Everybody had their umbrellas. And then they actually, if you can see it over here, actually this is Kingston Avenue. This is, I don't know if any of you have been to New York, but basically this is like off the main street where the parade was. And then they parked all these trucks, were all parked along the street, and all the children went to the end of the street, which is called Empire Boulevard, where they had like rides and things for the children to play on. I was walking past. I wanted to see what was left of our, what was left of this work that we had done, and was very upset to see that all the paint got ruined. And it obviously you wasn't able to, not only that the Rebbe hadn't seen it, but it didn't even look as good as we wanted. All of a sudden, I heard a lot of people making noises. I heard beeping. I heard people saying, look what's happening, look what's happening. I was standing right next to this big truck of ours, and all of a sudden I see the Rebbe's car is coming. The Lubavitcher Rebbe had just left his house on Lag BaOmer. The parade was already, all the children were on the rides, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe's car had gone to where the children's rides were, and he was now driving up that street, Kingston Avenue, was going to the resting place of his father-in-law to pray. And as the Rebbe's car came right in front of me, obviously I stopped to stand to be able to see the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's car stopped just in front of me and in front of the truck. And the Rebbe looks at the truck, he looks at me, he goes like this, he gives me a big smile, and he moved on. And I remember feeling like, wow, it was a second. I'm not sure if anybody even there nearby even understood what was behind it. I mean, I was so touched that the Lubavitcher Rebbe had the moment and the time to think about some Australian 18-year-old girl who's upset that he didn't see what she had done. And the Rebbe gave me that smile. So that was definitely very encouraging. Here you see a picture of me. I mean, here you see me, obviously I'm wearing a wig. I actually used to have very curly hair. This is a picture of me in the Rebbe's house. This was about a month after that story. I went to the Rebbe to get $1. I was actually going home for my vacation for the summer. And this is between my first year of seminary and the second year. And I told the Rebbe that I am going to Australia. And the Rebbe gave me $1, as you can see over here. And the Rebbe said, you should give it in Australia. And the Rebbe said, happy birthday. And I was a little bit surprised that the Rebbe told me happy birthday because it was not my birthday. My birthday happens to be the 11th of Nisan. The 11th of Nisan is actually the same date birthday as the Rebbe himself. Obviously, the Rebbe knows where my birthday is, and he knew that that was not my birthday. And I couldn't understand why was the Rebbe giving me $1 for my birthday now. I mean, I had just been by the Rebbe 2 months before, got $1 for my birthday. And next year on the 11th of Nisan, I'm going to be back again in New York. So why is the Rebbe giving me $1 for my birthday? I do remember that the person right behind me tells me that, oh, you know something, it's my birthday. Maybe the Rebbe made a mistake and he meant the $1 for me. And I said, listen, the Rebbe doesn't make mistakes. Sorry, the $1's for me. I'm not exactly sure why now, but the Rebbe gave me $1 for my birthday in advance. Not sure why. I went home for 6 weeks. I came back again. And then it was already up, and I came back and I told the Rebbe, again, you see videos, the photo is in the Rebbe's house. I told the Rebbe that that I have I'm going to be a head counselor in camp in Detroit. That's also somewhere in the States. And the Rebbe gave me $1 and said I should give it to tzedakah in Eretz HaKodesh, to give it in tzedakah in Israel. And I was also, again, very surprised. I was not planning to go anywhere near Israel. I just told the Rebbe I'm going to Detroit. And the Rebbe's giving me $1 for Israel. A little bit interesting, couldn't exactly understand why. The lady behind me happened to be also, this time she started telling me, oh, I'm going to Israel tomorrow. Maybe the $1's for me. And I said, no, listen, the Rebbe gave me the $1. Not sure how I'm going to get $1 to Israel, but the Rebbe had given me the $1. It's actually interesting, not clear why. And then I started my second year of seminary. I went to camp, started my second year of seminary. This is already 1988, the end of 88. And it happened to be the month of Kislev. It was month of Kislev. And at the time, I was in the middle of my second year of studying, enjoying myself very, very much in New York. And I asked, and a friend of mine tells me, there's a shadchanit, a matchmaker, who has a very good idea for you. And I said, something, I'm really not interested at the moment now in getting engaged. I don't want to be interested in going out with any boys or meeting anybody. I'm actually quite fine now. I'm in no rush to get married. I'd like to wait till I finish my studies, whatever. But this matchmaker was a very professional matchmaker because she happened to call my friend every single day to see if I changed my mind. So after like a few weeks of this kind of experience of the lady calling and calling again, I decided to speak to one of my teachers. And I said, what should I do? I really, really don't want to get married now. I'm actually in the middle of the studies. Everything is actually fun. I'm actually enjoying here in New York, and I'd rather wait a little bit later. What should I do? And she said, some of these kind of questions with marriage, no one really knows when's the right time, who's the right person. It's always a better idea to write to the Rebbe and ask the Rebbe for a blessing, and he should tell you what's the best thing for you to do. So I wrote a letter to the Rebbe. I wrote to the Rebbe in English. And I wrote to the Rebbe that, listen, I was offered to go out with this person. I really would, at the moment, I would like to continue my studies. And I wrote to the Rebbe in English, should I go out or should I continue my studies? And I didn't know actually how I'm going to give the letter to the Rebbe because the Rebbe was at the moment living in his house. And I didn't know how I'm going to find the Rebbe's secretary. So I decided I'm going to go on Sunday to the Rebbe for $. It was not, it wasn't done that you didn't give the letter straight to the Rebbe in the hands. That was not appropriate. But I was going to have the letter in my pocket. I would go for the Rebbe for $. And afterwards, I would give one of the ladies over there, give her the letters that she should give it afterwards to the secretary. Great. And that was my plan. And here I can also show you a picture of the next time I went to $. This was actually in the month of Kislev. As I was going past the Rebbe, So the Rebbe basically told everybody the general answer for people who were just going past and didn't speak to the Rebbe. The Rebbe would tell you bracha v'hatzlacha, which means blessings and success. So basically, everybody gets a blessing and success. Bracha v'hatzlacha, and everybody was getting $1. It's actually like a few seconds that a person is by the Rebbe if the person doesn't ask the Rebbe anything. And when the Rebbe came to me, instead of saying the standard blessings and success, the Rebbe told me besurot tovot, good news. And when he told me good news like that, I started to like, wow, this is like not what I was expecting to hear. I gave in the letter to the lady afterwards. And the next day I got an answer that the Rebbe had answered me that I had written in English, should I go out? The Rebbe crossed out the letter I, he put the I in front and he said, I should go out. So then I, to make a long story short, I met my husband, who is my husband today, Miriam Moskovitz, from Caracas, Venezuela. We happened to get married in Australia a few months later. And it happened to be that on my birthday, on the 11th of Nisan, when I was originally thought I would be still in New York, I was in Australia for my birthday. And then I understood why had the Rebbe given me that $1 for my birthday so many months ago, because he realized that for my birthday, I was going to be in Australia again. And 6 weeks later, I was in Israel. Also, was obviously the plan, but because it was Pesach, it was just before Pesach, my wedding, we wanted to go back via Israel because between Pesach and Shavuos, there's people count the Omer. Basically, if you go through this way from Australia or that way from Australia, you basically lose a day. So we basically ended up going through Israel, and I had that $1 as well. So once we were in New York, we were in Brooklyn. We were there for a year by the Rebbe. I had my first child, Mendel, and we started to look into different options where we could go on shluchos. This was my husband's dream. It was my dream also. And my husband being from South America, and he had been many times he had been in Peru, he had been in Cuba, Argentina, he had the Spanish, he had been in Mexico. So we were looking into South America. I started to learn Spanish. I bought a book, Learn Spanish in 20 minutes a day. I had stickers all over my house, like on the windows and on the doors, how to say these words in Spanish. I was practicing my Spanish. It helped me with my mother-in-law afterwards, but I assumed that's where I was going to end up. And then my husband comes home one day and he said, you know something, they're opening up the Soviet Union. They are now, this was in 1990, they're looking into couples who would be interested in going to the Soviet Union. So I was like, oh, that's really nice. And then my husband's like, well, maybe we could look into that. And I was like, well, we already have a baby. And it happened to be that all the couples that had asked the Rebbe who were interested in going to the Soviet Union, as crazy as you could imagine, like, why would everyone be so excited to go to the Soviet Union in 1990? But the dream of being able to be an emissary of the Rebbe was so in everybody's head. And here's this like a brand new frontier opening up that nobody knows about. We hadn't even, it's no internet in those days. There was even Russia wasn't even seen on television. You had no idea what it even looked like, the place. But there was definitely an interest in trying to get the privilege of being able to be an emissary in this new frontier, this new country that's opening up. But the Rebbe kept telling people no. Anybody who had children was getting a no. And just on that Friday, there was one couple who they were married already a year, they didn't have kids yet, and they wrote to the Rebbe, they got an answer. And I told my husband, you see that people with kids are not getting an answer. We already have a child. It's obviously not a place for people with, children. And then that was a Friday. Sunday, another couple wrote into the Rebbe, Rabbi Lazar, who's there now he's now the rabbi in Moscow. So first of all, the rabbi in Dnepropetrovsk, Rabbi Kamenetsky, got the answer on Friday. And then on Sunday morning, Rabbi Lazar, he got the answer, and he had a 4-month-old child. So my husband said, okay, so maybe we should, let's see if we're going to get an answer. So we first had to speak to our parents, our family. We wanted to make sure that they were all on board with our exciting original idea. My parents were like, it's only going to be for a year. They thought it was going to be like a year trial, and then we can go somewhere normal. She knows that they knew that there are normal places to go to be emissaries of the Rebbe. You don't have to always go out. So such a crazy idea, but they didn't want to stop us. My in-laws took a little bit longer. to agree a few extra days because my father-in-law actually happened to be a Holocaust survivor. He was actually at 13 years old. He was in Auschwitz. He was in 5 concentration camps, but he was originally from Ukraine. And so for him, the Ukrainians and the Germans the Nazis were exactly almost the same. So for him, that we should be going to a place where he saw so much suffering and he saw so much anti-Semitism, he saw so much, it was very, very hard for him. But then after a couple of days, they decided, this is only going to be for a year. That's what they were thinking of. So they also said, okay. So we wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave us an answer within like a few minutes. In Hebrew, it's b'sha tova mutzlachas, in a good and successful time, auspicious time. And we quickly started learning Russian. I found the same book, Learn Russian in 20 Minutes a Day. I remember, I don't know if any of you know Russian, it's a very, very, very hard language to get it to sound right. I remember we had tapes in Russian. I remember the first words were like how to say excuse me in Russian, which was izvinitsie. And I was sitting there with my husband and we were like replaying that word and we just decided, forget it, we'll learn it when we get there. So basically, us 3 rabbis in Dnieper, in Moscow and Charkov. Why did they choose Charkov? Because in Charkov, they were planning to give back the Jewish community was going to be getting back the synagogue. So the synagogue in Charkov was for 70 years was closed and used as a sports complex. They had football, basketball, all over the synagogue, and they were just giving it back. So they decided that this would be appropriate for a rabbi to come. So when we basically took a crash course in Russian, how to read, how to count from 1 to 100, how to say my favorite season of the year is spring. I don't know why we needed to know that. And we basically quickly learned Russian and bought every single thing that we could absolutely think of that we would need. We had no idea what was in Russia. I'll be honest that we thought, then it was Russia, now it's Ukraine. But we had no idea what there was and what there wasn't. We had 10 boxes, but we took absolutely every single thing that we could think of, from diapers, from food, coffee, clothes. We had to get different. America's 110. This was going to be 220 voltage. It was going to be like anything that we could think of that we would need. I'll be honest. I assumed that there was KGB agents walking up and down the street. I didn't even know if there was going to be electricity. I had no idea where I was coming to. So then we get on the plane. Here we are. I'll just show you me and my husband getting 1 second. So this is my husband with my son, Mendel. And the Rebbe asked every single time we went with our kids, he would ask, is he also coming with you? And we would always say, of course. And he would also give $1 to the children. So when we got to Charkov, we actually lived in a hotel. This is the main square in Charkov. It is still the main square in Charkov today. When we actually landed in Moscow, Moscow was the capital then at the time. It was the Soviet Union, Moscow being the capital. And we basically had to be on a train the entire night from Moscow till we got into Charkov. It's actually a 12-hour train. We had no idea how long the ride was going to be. At the time, all we knew is that Charkov starts with the letter like an X. So basically, every single time the train stopped, we would be looking for the X to make sure, we didn't miss our stop. We were scared we were going to end up in Siberia if we kept going. We get to Charkov in the morning. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. The sun is shining. I remember in Moscow it was raining. It was very, very depressing. But in Charkov the sun was shining. We get to and we told we're going to be staying in the hotel. The hotel was like $1 a night kind of a hotel. We had 1 room for us and 1 room for our kids. All our things, our 10 boxes with all our life there. I remember the first night. We slept in the hotel, 4 o'clock in the morning. I hear this big noise on the square that you see over here. And I look out the window and there's like hundreds and hundreds of soldiers and tanks. And all the soldiers are pointing towards our window. I tell my husband, I said, Moshe, wake up. They've come to get us. I thought they had already come and found us. We said, basically, let it over here. We basically had all these soldiers out our window. And then we started realizing that, no, it just happened to be a military exercise in the morning, but I was already sure that the KGB was already after us. in the morning, we came to the, this was our hotel. We were on the 3rd floor. In the morning, I came to, this was how our synagogue actually looked at the time. We came Friday night. We told everybody that, you know, there was 1,000 people had come to Friday night to meet us, to find out who is this new rabbi and his wife that is coming to, you know, to Charkov. Actually, I remember them pushing, and we were trying to get through, and they're pushing us back. And I was like, you know, we're the people that you're coming to see. They assumed that the rabbi that's coming is going to be some old man with a white beard, you know, and his old wife. They didn't expect that the rabbi that's coming would be such a young couple. So basically, we this was like the entrances over there to the shore. And this is our first, basically on that Friday night, we announced that we're going to be making a Sunday school in the morning. On that Sunday, I mean, 150 kids came the first Sunday that we had arrived. The excitement of people that we were finally able to be, you know, proud Jews again, that definitely is something that really, really made a difference to and helped us in the very beginning. Even though we didn't have the language, it still ended up being the excitement and the thirst that everybody happened to know more about being Jewish and to find out more about the Judaism. Definitely ended up being something that was extremely encouraging in the beginning. We felt like pioneers. The fact that it was hard, the fact that we didn't, you know, really have too much what to eat, that was just part of the whole experience. I remember we had a translator who was translating for us in English. Her name was Batya. We would speak, she would translate. And I remember a few years later, we were looking at the old videos, and like you would listen to my husband, for example, on a Hanukkah concert, and my husband was saying, Hanukkah is a very important, you know, festival. It's very important to remember the lesson of the Hanukkah lights is that every night we add more and more. So too, we also have to add more and more. And she would translate, thank you very much, everybody, for coming this evening. So somehow, despite that they couldn't really understand what we were saying, somehow or other we got our way through. I remember I didn't speak, my Russian wasn't too great. But I once I was in this hotel, which was a little bit like a bit of a crummy hotel. And what happened was I was there with my son. My husband was in the synagogue, and all of a sudden I see a mouse run past. Now, I don't like mice in any shape or form, but especially not in a small hotel room with my 8-month-old son at the time. So I grabbed my son on the table. I jumped on the table, and this was no cell phones in those days. I had one of those old phones that used to, I'm sure you all remember them very good, used to go like this. So I pulled the phone up. I called my husband on the phone. I say, Moshe, I'm on the table with Mendel, and I'm not getting down because there's a mouse here. So you've got to get someone here to help me. So he starts laughing. And he says, I don't even know how to say mouse in Russian. So could you know, what am I supposed to do? So I'll give the phone over to Misha. So Misha was this a nice old Jewish man who he spoke a bit of Yiddish, and he also used to help us to buy whatever we need. So I started telling Misha about the mouse. Now in Russian, the word mouse, mishka, is very similar to the word bear, mishka. So I start telling him that there is a mouse. There's a mouse, there's a mishka. Of course, I'm saying it wrong. And instead of saying there's a mouse, I'm telling him that there's a bear. And there's a bear in the hotel room. He's on the floor and he's asking me the whole time, is it big or is it small? And I was like, oh, it's really big. It's really big. He's on the floor. He starts running in. He says, where's the bear? You know, he promised me that he took out the mouse. I'm not sure that he did, but I did end up getting off the table. You know, this day, Misha, I remember that I asked him, what did we eat the whole time? So basically in the morning, they used to have Pepsi, bottles of Pepsi. And then for lunch, we went to turn on the fire in a place, and we had like round bread, which was called lavash. And in the evening, we used to have, when we left to Ukraine, well, it was Russia at the time, when we left to Charkov, some lady in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, she had made a very, very big like stew, which is like cholent, which is like potatoes and meat. And she had put it into cans. She had made canned cholent. That's basically what it called, like canned, like meat stew kind of thing. So we had like these cans for dinner. We would go like this, and we had a little burner. So after like a few weeks of this not very exciting menu, I decided we need to change a little bit. So I asked Misha to buy some fresh fish. So he bought everything else that I had asked him. He bought the watermelon, he bought grapes, he bought fruit, he bought more Pepsi. but I didn't see the fish. I told Misha, where's the fish? And he tells me, oh, in the bathroom. So I go into the bathroom. In the bath is swimming a live fish. So I was like, I meant fresh, but not that fresh. So back to my husband on the phone, I said, Moshe, there's a live fish in the bath. I don't know what to do with it. Misha obviously doesn't know how to help me to what to do with this fish, but obviously some nice old babushka or some lady comes over, she turns the fish into something or other. I don't know exactly. I didn't really actually want to look what she did. But then we went back to the cans again. So this is like our beginning experiences. But what we actually saw, what was amazing, is that the excitement in people to be able to know more about being Jewish. And even though we hardly spoke the language, I remember there would be lines and lines of people to speak to my husband. And then they would say, Ich rede Yiddish, I speak Yiddish. They would say, that's the 3 words that they could say. And then 2 seconds later, they were speaking Russian. And my husband would go like, yo, 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 yo. And they would just be going on and on and on in Russian. But they felt so good. They felt that they were heard. They felt like they were speaking to a live rabbi. And we felt like it doesn't make a difference what I was saying. They were just so happy and appreciated that finally there was someone here who would be able to share them and let them know more about being Jewish. The first, we had Rosh Hashanah, so we came in El, and just before Rosh Hashanah. And the first Rosh Hashanah, we said that it's going to be the Jewish New Year's for the first time in the synagogue that had just been returned. I remember 3,000 people came to Shul on that first Rosh Hashanah, but they had no idea what a Jewish New Year's was. I think they were thinking more as in what's going to be here in the next few days, which is going to be party time. I'm not sure with Corona, but they imagined what they thought the Jewish New Year's is probably going to be even cooler. And they come to Rosh Hashanah, the New Year's services, in the first time in 70 years. And my husband comes out and he starts blowing a shofar. Like they really were like, that's it. That's what we do on our New Year's. Yes, it was like seriously, everyone's praying. They didn't actually expect that was going to be the New Year's celebration over there but slowly people started getting the idea of it. We opened the kindergarten, we opened the school. My son Mendel was joined by more and more brothers and sisters. I have 12 children. In the beginning, everyone used to say, oh, so how many kids are you going to have? And I used to say, no, we're going whatever, one by one, we don't count. And then I had twins. And then they said, oh, so you're going to start going by 2s. I was like, no, I don't think we're going by 2s. But the family grew, the community grew. At the time when we came, we had 50,000 people. And I'm just going to show you a little bit about this. We'll show you about the synagogue. There was actually a fire in our synagogue, unfortunately. While we were there was somebody who wasn't too interested in us being in the synagogue. Not really, it's a bit of it was a hard story, but this is now our synagogue today. Now this is in
wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so after the fire, we renovated it. And this is the ladies, this is where the ladies areas. And basically, when we arrived, this was actually a 2nd floor that they had built. And they used to have football over here, and downstairs here was boxing. We returned it to the way it was before, and this is basically how our synagogue looks today. This is the lobby of the synagogue. And now we have a school. We have over 300 children in a day school. This is ordinary, not religious, Jewish children from 1st grade till here we only have till 11th grade, basically studying normal secular studies. And in addition, we have Jewish studies and Jewish teachers to give them a background to their Judaism. Every year we also have, actually last year was the last time we were able to do it. We actually started the Purim last year. It was here in Ukraine. I'm not sure exactly when it started by you, but by us 2 days after Purim last year, we started the quarantine here in Ukraine. And we actually managed to have 2,000 people in the circus on Purim. We rent the entire circus, and we read the Megillah Tester. Every single person gets Mishloach Manot, gets some kind of a Hanukkah, Purim present. And the kids in the school also perform over there. We did actually, I remember one year, Purim was the same as this year, that it's going to be on a Friday. And we made the circus, I think, on Friday morning. And on a Sunday afterwards, there was Shabbat. And then Sunday morning, an old man came to the synagogue to my husband, like around 10 in the morning, and says to my husband that I want to do a brit milah. I want to do a circumcision. And my husband's like, wow, like I don't remember seeing you. You don't come to prayers. I don't recognize you. And now you all of a sudden want to do a circumcision. Like, what made you think of doing one now? So he says, I'll tell you the truth is I don't come to the synagogue. I only once a year go to the circus on Purim. And that's the only thing I do. That's my only connection to Judaism. But this year I wasn't feeling good. My wife went and she came home with the packages that you gave out. She ate all the food on the way. So all that was left was the brochure. And in the brochure, it said the different things that you do. And I saw you have a kindergarten and you have a school. Well, I'm a little bit too old for that. I'm already 80. And I was looking through the list and I saw circumcision, Brit Milah. And I thought, well, that's something I think I can do. So that's why I came today. And my husband was like amazed because just that morning had come, we don't have the whole time. We don't always have a moil, someone to do circumcision, but he happened to be in Charkov at the time. And an hour later, this man had 80 years old, did a Brit Milah, and his name became Yaakov. So this is I'll give you a chance. You can have a look at this. No, this is one second. This is basically the circus in Charkov. Okay, this is we also have a camp.
Okay, I just want to interrupt you.
Sure.
Because maybe some people are not aware of this part of history, that for Jewish people in the former Russia, during the time of the communism, they were so scared to live as Jews that many people, even though they knew how important it is to do a Brit Milah for their babies, they didn't do it. And once after the perestroika, then so many people they wanted to be connected to Judaism in one way or the other. And one of the things was that many people who were already much older never had a Brit Milah. So only then they started getting their Brit Milah. So this is like the same what you're telling about this man who is 80 years old and finally having a Brit Milah.
Right. Well, 100%. Here I'm giving you a story. Also, you see this man over here. So his name used to be Slavic. And Slavic didn't come to the synagogue. His wife is not Jewish, and actually a religious non-Jew. And he took a long time till he decided. He has a friend, Mark, who comes to the synagogue and always told him, just meet the rabbi. If you got to meet the rabbi once, then I'll leave you alone. Just come one time to the synagogue. It can't be you're a Jewish guy and you didn't even walk in, you've got to come in. So he made up, okay, he's going to meet the rabbi once and then he's going to stop bothering him. He met my husband. He was there for like a few hours in my husband's office. And by the end of the meeting, he made up with my husband that he also wants to do a circumcision. And my husband said, that's amazing of you, but there's 613 commandments. You don't have to choose the hardest one. You can take it slowly. Let's start with, you could start with easier commandments. And he said, no, I want to be a real Jew. And this was a Thursday. That year was, again, Purim was on a Sunday. And the moil, the one who would do the Brit Milah, he could only come on a Tuesday. And so I remember this was Thursday, was his first time he met my husband. And Sunday, we told him, you're going to be doing the circumcision on Tuesday. On Sunday, come to the Purim celebrations in the synagogue. You can hear the Megillat Esther. And I remember seeing him walking into the synagogue, and exactly when he came in, they started saying Haman, and everybody started making all the noises, and everyone's laughing. And he was like looking and he said, wow, this is so different from what he had seen, like, uncomparably to what in the church. In the church, everything was serious and dark. And here all of a sudden, he was like coming to a synagogue, and everybody's in like this great mood. He came to Purim. He told everybody at the Suda of Purim, he told everybody that on Tuesday, I'm going to be becoming a real Jew. Of course, he was a Jew anyway, but he felt that his circumcision was making him, cementing in him his Jewishness. But we were told by his friend that he might chicken out on Tuesday. It might not work out because it could be that his wife is very, very nervous about it. And the priests in the church are also very nervous about losing such a good client who used to give a lot of money to the church. And they were actually very concerned about him doing a circumcision. So on Tuesday, but he did come. He came there on Tuesday, and just before he does the circumcision, he tells my husband, you wouldn't believe who came last night. The head priest of the church came over to my house last night, and he came over to tell me how it is a terrible decision that I'm making, and that if I'm going to do a circumcision, I'm going to end up going to hell, and the Jewish people are cursed people, and it's definitely not a good idea for you to be doing this. And so my husband said, oh, so what did you tell him? So he said, well, you can see he's a little bit of Slavic, looks like a bit of a big guy. He picked him up and he told him, and he threw him out of his house. He said, I don't want to see you ever again. He does the circumcision. His phone is ringing the whole time. He gets himself he doesn't know, in the middle, obviously, he doesn't pick up the phone. This is all under local anesthesia. He gets himself a Jewish name. He becomes Shimon. And then he sees who's the missed call. It's this priest. He asked my husband, what should you tell him? What should I tell him? Look who's been calling me. He said, tell him it's already too late. And what happened was this Slavic Shimon, he, one second, where is he? So this Slavic, this Shimon, he basically also ended up, changing his way of life. It all started with the circumcision. Here we have this young couple here. His name now is Moshe Baruch. His name used to be Misha. And Misha was in our Sunday school. Remember, we showed you a picture at the very, very beginning that for a Sunday, a few kids came over. So at the time, Misha was a very, how can I say, ADD kind of kid, hyperactive. He couldn't sit still for very long. So he was in our Sunday school maybe 3 or 4 times, and then he just couldn't sit still. He stopped coming. And a few years later, he was on the subway. I don't know what you call it over there. Also a subway, the trains, the metro, I'm not sure what you call it. Basically, so he was in the subway, and we had actually put advertisements on every, throughout the subway. It had a picture of the Rebbetsin Rebbe and telling that try and do a good deed to make the world a better place. And he sat down on the train, all of a sudden he sees the picture of the Rebbe, and he thinks, I really got to go. I should go back to the synagogue and see what's happening over there. He was 15 years old at the time. So instead of going where he was going, he got off the train, returned to the synagogue. And when he came to the synagogue, he saw there was all these big buses in the front of the synagogue. And he saw that, he went inside and says, what's happening over here? Oh, so he said, this is camp is starting. And they said, would you like to go to camp? They knew he was a Jewish boy. So he called up his mother on the phone. And he says, hi, Mom, I'm going to camp. Could you please send my clothes? And he jumped on the bus. He went to camp. His mother actually did send up his clothes. He was there for 3 weeks. And like during camp, he actually had a circumcision now. So this Moshe, he's now Moshe Baruch. He ended up being a counselor in our camp. He ended up being a head counselor. He's now an emissary of the Rebbe in Moscow himself. This is already his family. So you never know what one small thing can be done. So this is very much like what Sarah just said, the story of somebody, his brother, one that we've seen over here, his name, Vitalik, but now his name is Moshe. His brother, actually, when he was born, the grandmother wanted her grandson to have a brit milah. She knew that her daughter-in-law would not let. So she basically told her daughter-in-law exactly 8 days after her son was born that she should go a little bit for a walk outside for fresh air. So the daughter-in-law goes for a walk outside for fresh air. And while the daughter-in-law is not there, the grandmother quickly called a moil to do the brit milah on her grandson. And when she comes back, I don't know if it had diapers in those days or whatever it was, all of a sudden she sees that there's bandages and blood. She thought something had happened to the child. She was about to call the ambulance, and the grandmother said, no, everything's fine. I just circumcised him because he's a Jewish boy. So when this man that you see there right now, Vitalik, when he was born a few years later, the mother was a little bit smarter, and she made sure not to trust the grandmother. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to, he didn't have a brit milah on time. So when did he actually end up? He was actually 50 years old at the time. He came into my husband's office one day. It was the summer, and he asked what's news. And it happened to be that at that time, the boys in the summer camp were doing circumcisions. And so he decided that, okay, I guess it's time for me also to take that step. My mother wasn't brave enough to do it for me 50 years ago. So now I'm going to end up doing it. So that's our Moshe over here. And this is my son, who is now this Mendel, that's the 8-month-old boy. when he was bar mitzvah, when he was 13, they actually gave, it was actually, I think 60 years from the time, 65 years, a special time that from a place called Rebbetsin Sara. We have a place called Rebbetsin Sara where 30,000 Jews were killed in the Holocaust. And the prime minister at the time, Kuchma, the prime minister of Ukraine, was coming to Charkov to open up and dedicate the monument and to apologize in the name of the Ukrainian people that they were not able to prevent such a big tragedy happening here. And it happened to be a few days before my son's bar mitzvah. It was actually, I'm not sure if you have Celsius or Fahrenheit, we're Celsius over here. So I remember it was like -25 at the time. And we all went to this Rebbetsin Sara, the president of Ukraine, and my husband is standing next to him to say a prayer. And I was standing next to my father-in-law. This is my father-in-law who had, as a child, had his bar mitzvah. He was 13 when he entered it was Shavuot. It was his 13th birthday that he entered Auschwitz. And here he was watching his son next to the president of Ukraine, and knowing that in a few days his grandson is going to be celebrating his bar mitzvah in Ukraine. And he said, wow, it shows that we beat Stalin, we beat Hitler, and Am Yisrael Chai, that we are still here, still here today. So that's my story. It was very, very nice to be able to speak to you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Well, it's quite impressive what the kind of life that you have over there in Charkov. I don't know if there's anybody in the public that want to ask a question, but do you have like a message for the public, like for the people who are listening?
I think I will give you like what I think I've learned all these years. I'm here already for 30 years. I have 30 years here. I think I just learned that whatever a person has to do, a person has to try and realize he can do a lot more than he thinks he can, to realize our own personal potential, and also to realize that you never know what one small act is going to do. And I think that's what really, I think that's really something that really makes you appreciate things. Sometimes we end up knowing the effects of something that we've done. Sometimes we never really realize. Many times we'll find out afterwards, oh, don't you'll find out at the happy ending of some of the stories. But I think a lot of patience for people, a lot of, trying to do things through the positive. I think that's a very, very big, a big help when you try and think of being positive. And that's, I think, the way that you really end up realizing that that's where you can affect the people the most, by just being positive, doing a little thing at a time. No one has to change their whole lives in one day. But I think just letting people feel good about themselves, being proud of their Judaism, knowing that, they have their own specific role in the world. If they were born in Charkov, if they were born in Netherlands, if they were born in Sydney, Caracas, or Brooklyn, every single person, wherever they are needed, and they have their own specific potential. So I think that's our goal, is to use our own potential as much as we can. We can always do more than we think, and I think to also build that up in other people, that they can also realize how special and important they are to God.
Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. A wonderful story and a beautiful message. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for everybody for watching.
And keep healthy, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Healthy and safe. All the very best.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. A wonderful story. Wonderful, inspiring story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All the very best.
Thank you for your inspiration.
Good luck and good health.
Thank you. Also you too.
That's your heart.